Wildflowers.
Number 21 podcast. We're getting there. We're getting there. Absolutely.
I remember 21.
You remember it? With all the wine you drink, you remember 21?
I wasn't drinking wine when I was 21. That's for sure.
Yeah. How's everybody doing on this fine day? I'm waiting to you. No.
I'm doing great.
Yes. Yeah.
So what do we have going on this?
Well, it's funny that we're doing great with everything going on with this whole nonsense with George Santos.
Oh,
Jesus Christ.
Oh my God, what is wrong with you, Kevin McCarthy? Kick him out.
Yeah,
he needs to vote.
Yeah.
He's not going to do it because he's a self-serving traitor.
You had asked a question. I wonder if you followed up. But you asked, is there anything that we can do as New Yorkers?
You know what? I wanted to go on the Indivisible site to see, but I don't think that we can. Like, we can't impeach him. Only Congress can make that move. And they're not going to do it because the Republicans are in control. But it's really a shame because what kind of representation do we have? He's my district where I live.
Embarrassing. I mean, he didn't even have an office set up still.
No.
I mean, he's elected and they still had the name of the prior representative there. There's no staff. How's he going to take?
He can't do anything because he's trying to defend himself all the time.
And he does such a poor job at that, at trying to defend himself. But the thing is that you know, when we say the word Republican, I don't consider these people Republicans anymore.
But they're in the Republican Party.
Well,
that's
I know, but I don't consider
the shame of it.
Exactly. But how can they justify welcoming George Santos and being okay with Liz Cheney kicking her out?
Because it's not the Republican Party that we're accustomed to.
She was telling the truth, and so she does us no good. Truth is not valued anymore.
But what I want to know, and I'm going to be hard on my party, which I'm a Democrat, is what the hell was his opponent's team thinking? How did they not do their due diligence when they were running against this guy?
Research.
Why was there no opposition research? If it's so easy to
I think that
this.
there was. I think that they actually knew a lot of this stuff, and I guess maybe they thought he wasn't going to win. But I'm pretty sure that, who was running against him? Zimmerman?
Oh, I can't even remember it now.
District,
It's not my district.
Yeah, well, I think it was Zimmerman, and I didn't hear a lot about it, but I did hear that people had knowledge of it. The press had knowledge of it, and the Democrats had knowledge of it, and they didn't take it seriously enough.
Well,
and then he won.
Shame on us then because of that. Because that was the first thing I thought about is how are we just finding about this now? I would have been broadcasting this everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's not just one thing he was wrong. It's every single thing that he spoke about. And it's funny because one of my daughters, you know, the news was asking, well, can't he, you know, isn't that a crime to say? And it's funny, and I said, there's not like an application where you sign under the pains and penalty of perjury that your resume is true.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I go, maybe it should be. You know,
it should be. I mean, if you apply for a job,
and that would be a job
as a civilian, you know, and you lied in your application, you could be terminated.
Absolutely.
I mean, he can be terminated if the ethics committee, you know, decided to do that.
But that's now being run by Kevin McCarthy, and it's just not going to do it.
Shame on you, Kevin McCarthy, and for removing Adam Schiff from the House Intelligence Committee. But you know what? The good news is Adam Schiff is running for Senate in California.
I sent him some money.
Did you? Because you know, like I wrote, I feel powerless at times with what's happening, but I mean, it's like.
I know.
But absolutely.
He's not going to be in there long anyway, so it's okay.
Well, I don't even think that he'll make it the 2 years.
I
really don't think he will.
Towards the end of
Let's
this
hope
year.
not. Yeah, let's hope not. But anyway, that's.
He sold his soul.
Yeah, I don't even, you know, it's just crazy because it's not even his name. I mean, it's just the whole thing is just.
But maybe this will bring about important changes. Like, you know, like as you said, you sign a job application under...
That's right.
You know, you apply for anything, a driver's license, a pilot's license, anything. You're signing under pains and penalty of perjury. you're going to run for
One
Congress,
would
I would
think.
think you would
Yeah.
do that, but now we know you don't have to.
I know.
Maybe that's something they would change because he does need, this would be something people have gone to jail for.
Well,
People who
Yeah.
are running for a government office should be vetted.
Well,
Absolutely.
it's crazy when, they say, well, everybody in politics lies, or everybody lies. Well,
About everything?
yeah, exactly.
His
Every
whole life,
single
yeah.
thing. It's exactly.
He did it to appeal to all these different groups of people. You know,
horrible.
his grandmother was in the
Dog
Holocaust.
rescue, a
and
dog
just,
rescue.
Yeah.
All
Yep.
it was ridiculous. You know what it does? It makes me want to drink.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying.
Okay, so it's my turn to bring the wine. I bought a red wine today. We had white wine last time.
Okay.
Okay, this is an Italian wine.
Ooh, I like
It's a
Italian
full-bodied wine. It's called Argiano NC Toscana from 2017. Do you want to
Oh,
pour it as I
okay.
read a little bit?
Does our audience member like a little bit of wine?
Would you like some wine?
Well, we'll get you a glass.
Now here's a little winemaker notes, okay? NC is a wine with a decisive, full-bodied character, smooth tannins, and a persistent finish.
Persistent finish.
So it's
Not
a
a bad
Toscana, so it's like a Chianti. It's from Tuscany.
Yes. This blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Shiraz, and Sangiovese reveals an exciting potency with the innate gentleness of Merlot, creating a bridge between the
Brooklyn and Queens.
earthiness of Sangiovese, aromatic blackcurrant flavor of Cabernet, and the warm red berries of Shiraz. The result is a generous, rounded red wine destined for short to medium aging with delicious aromas of currants and generous fruit flavors. Versatile enough to develop in greater depth during long months in the bottle. This is a little more than what I usually pay. This is, but not too expensive. I bought this at a local wine store, 777 liquor store, West Islip, which I love. Is $19.99.
Okay.
So I mean, not too bad at
Yeah.
all. So let's see what we think.
Well, what should we toast to? It doesn't always have to be a birthday.
No, it doesn't have to be a
How about
birthday.
to our audience member? Thank you.
Yes,
you.
thank you,
Kathleen.
Kathleen.
Good
Yeah,
friend.
good friend, which will
We've been friends for years and years and years.
also a book lover.
That's right.
Not so
Yes.
much a wine lover.
A librarian as well. Which are,
She's a librarian now.
Mm.
Okay, let me taste.
that's not full bodied. What the heck?
Well, I don't know. Well, it's
a
dry,
blend. It is dry,
which I like.
but it's not full. I don't think it's. I wouldn't call it full bodied.
I don't know. I
It
would.
smells nice. Would you?
It's not light.
I like it.
It's nice.
You don't love it.
I don't love it.
I don't love it either.
I don't love it.
But I don't hate it either. I mean, I
Yeah.
wouldn't say I'm not drinking that.
Oh.
No.
We tend to be like that, don't we?
No, I mean, it's good. What
We'll
do you
drink
think, Kathleen?
anything before
Did you
us.
taste
really.
it?
No, not
Yeah, I
anything.
tasted it.
Right.
Not
Delicious
your,
with my
your,
peanut M&Ms.
Dave soy, whatever that was.
I'll drink anything before me. I drink that. I like
Yeah.
the Katy Perry.
Kathleen
alcohol.
says it goes good with peanut M&Ms.
Oh, good. Oh, awesome. Glad
peanut
I
M&Ms are awesome. Now this is.
No.
I just when I think of full bodied, I think of a heavy cab. So that's not what this is. Now it's a blend, but I thought it would have been a little thicker for my like.
And it says it has Merlot in it, or it's just
Yes.
reminiscent.
It's
it says-
Sangiovese, Merlot,
And Cabernet.
Syrah, and Cabernet.
All right, let me see if they give
I listened.
percentages. You did. It doesn't give percentages.
No, they
It's got critical acclaim with dark berries and chocolate and a hint of vanilla on the palate. Medium to full bodied, somebody else described it. It's medium, and not full bodied.
So eventually, we are going to have somebody come in. We know Linda Preston, who's deals with wine.
Oh, that's right.
And I want
I
her
like
to
that.
teach me. I don't know if you probably don't need it, but
Here I do.
how to taste what we're tasting. I want to know more.
Do we have to spit in that little spittoon?
Yeah, that's really the way you're supposed to do it. That's gross.
All right, so not really.
And you're supposed
I don't
to
want to
like
do the spitting.
like slurp it and like
yeah.
like
No.
this, like this.
Like what? Okay.
Slurp it.
And you're
Like
not
coffee.
supposed to swallow it, but I automatically do.
Yeah, it's a habit. It happens.
Yeah, I really didn't like it when I did
There was
that.
an episode
Oh,
of
really?
Frasier about that.
Oh, okay.
I remember an episode of Frasier. Remember Frasier?
I never used to watch
Oh,
it.
I know.
Yeah.
I did. I loved Frasier.
It's on Cozy TV now.
How cozy.
That's your commercial.
All right,
break
so this
there.
is my one. Okay, but
Okay.
better than my non-alcoholic pick last
Oh
time.
my god, that was awful.
Audience member, I think we just scared her.
I know. It
Yeah.
tasted like pine salt.
She said it tasted like pine salt.
It was.
It really smells more like a cleaning fluid.
It was Katy Perry's drink. She put it out. I thought, oh, it's gonna be
it
this
was,
Yeah.
thing.
It was.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. All the
It
ones
was.
that you
It,
didn't
was
like
it?
the
Yeah, I
last-
should have. Was it yes or no? Like Katy Perry. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I know.
All right, so listen. How many wildflowers?
For this wine,
I'm
I would
saying
give it
3
like
and a
maybe
half.
2.
Oh, I
Two.
say 3.5.
I was gonna say 3.
I say 3.5.
Okay, so 2, 3, 3.5. There you go.
How many? Wait, we go up to 5, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
5.
All
Yeah.
right. 3.5.
What's the name of it?
Argiano.
Argiano.
Why, you want to notice so you don't remember?
You know, it's not my thing. You know, I like reds, but like Judy, I really like cabs.
Mm-hmm.
I do like some Pinot Noirs, you know, if they
Right.
have a lot of flavor in it. And sometimes you want a lighter wine. I
was
don't
thinking
always
of
want a heavy
Italian.
wine.
I thought,
It's-
yeah, I know
yeah.
you like.
I like
know
some
you like some
Chiantis and-
Chiantis. I thought, oh, maybe this will be.
Yeah.
No.
The best red that I've tasted like this year was that whole ranch that we did the tasting for.
That was
That
delicious.
was a really, really good wine.
Yeah,
And that was only
good.
$19.99, that wine.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Well, you know, I love Banter, and I said I saw that they had put an ad out that they have this select reserve of Banter, white and red.
Oh.
Okay.
So but I've been on a drier
Yeah.
kick,
Right,
so I
right,
didn't
right.
order any, but I might have to get some for
Yeah.
next time.
Well, real quick, and I'll have to mention this, is that just this week, and Peggy and I went together to a new liquor store, but in the liquor store collects, well, they'll receive corks, but I think they changed that now. So I brought 2 garbage bags filled.
I walked away from her. I had a little tiny shopping bag full. I had emailed them. There's a company called Recork, and they, you know, they take used corks and they sell
Why
them, I
didn't you
guess,
give
and
them
they
to
make
me? My
shoes
girls
out
are
of
taking
them,
I didn't
and
know you wanted them.
Oh yeah.
no, you were gonna recork yours too.
No, remember I said the girls are collecting because of what you did.
Yeah, but I thought they were collecting them to send them somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this
So
stuff is
anyway,
good.
so
Okay,
then
I'll start doing
I
that
went
now.
on the
Okay.
site for Recork, and they said, oh, like liquor stores, like you could bring them to certain locations. So I looked on Long Island, and one of them was Bottle Value in Bethpage,
Okay.
in Old Bethpage. So I emailed them because on the site they said make sure that they're still doing it. You know, we don't pay for shipping anymore because they used to pay for that. So I emailed them and they said, yes, Peggy, we do take them. So I said, okay. They said, just put them in a shopping bag.
They use that voice.
And then, so then we brought them in and I went first and I had my little tiny shopping bag and the people behind the register are looking at me like, what? And the manager was there. He said, yes, we do take them. So I brought them over to him. And then Carol said, well, I have some too
In my car.
in my car. And she had 2 big, like, tall kitchen bags
Filled.
full of them.
They talked about you when you left.
And I said it was only a month's worth. No, actually, it was years and years worth. It really was.
He
but-
did take them, but then we found out later on in talking with him, because they do wine tastings there, and they have
It's
the
a really
little
nice
machine,
place.
a very nice place in there. Their prices were good.
Oh, did you buy something?
Yes,
Oh,
of
yes.
course, I would never go into a
Yeah,
place
yeah.
and put them through that and not buy anything. Actually, I tried a really good, I bought a really good Chardonnay that I opened last night. It's delicious. And it was cheaper than in Total Wine, I checked.
Oh.
It was $1 cheaper.
Were you sure it was last night or the night before? Is that
The night before, I finished it last night.
Okay, because
Yeah.
you told Natasha about it.
Right.
And she told me
Right.
that you said you liked it.
Yeah, very good. And then he told me, he said, well, we really don't do it anymore. So I said, I emailed you guys. He said, I know, my colleague made a mistake. And I said, you should have emailed me back. I said, I
Right.
wouldn't have brought them.
Yeah.
He said, no, he said, I take them for my personal use, so it's fine. So I said, well, I told another friend about it, meaning you.
Yeah.
Should I tell her not to come? He said, no, tell her that she could come. I will take them. His name was,
Well, I don't know.
I asked him Max.
Yeah, I don't know.
Max or Matt? Matt.
Matt
So
sounds
anyway,
right,
yeah, Matt.
Okay.
So he said, yes, no, it's fine, because
All right.
he said, I use them for my own projects, so I don't know what he's
All
doing.
right. Well,
with
Well, he's
Yeah.
got a lot to use with.
There's a lot. Well, no, it was a good that came out of our discussion on from composting,
Yes,
recycling.
That's
And
right.
so my
Yeah.
girls were inspired to collect them, and they're
Well,
doing
I will
it.
Yeah.
give them to them.
So they're collecting from their neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that is. a
I
good
bought
thing
the
to do.
little kitchen composter that I could keep under my sink, so that when I'm cooking and I have all my peels, like I don't have to put them in a bowl and then run outside to the compost. You could just put them right in there, and with my coffee grinds. So it's
Good for
I'm
you.
much more likely to compost now because I don't have to every time run out.
composting. It was a great discussion last time
Absolutely.
too. I love it.
Yeah.
But what
so-
about now? Let's do the book.
It's not me.
Oh, okay. No,
Uh-huh.
the book is me.
Oh my
So,
God.
anyway, I just got finished reading Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I liked the book. I'm not going to rave about it, but the story was quite interesting, and the main character this takes place in the 1950s, first of all. You can
Oh,
actually
that's
tell by the way she's dressed
Beautiful dress.
on the cover.
Yeah, I love that dress.
And she is a socialite, this young woman, in her 20s. And, she comes from a wealthy family. And one of her cousins that she was very close to, she used to live with them, Catalina, she got married and she moved with her husband, whose family owned this rundown mansion in a rural mountain area. And they used to be very wealthy too. They had silver mines there in Mexico.
Oh.
And all the mines, a lot of things happened with them, and there was a big epidemic and all the workers died. It was all very mysterious. And they lost all their money. So her name is Naomi or Noemi. I don't know. It's like in Mexican. Maybe you know. You're more Spanish than me.
You're more Spanish.
Oh, I don't have the card. I forgot the book.
Oh, there it is.
Ta-da! Sorry. Okay, her name is Naeomi.
Naomi.
Naomi. Yeah. So anyway, she's a girl, and she's one of those girls. She just wants to have fun. Her father wants her to get married and marry somebody who's, well placed like their family is, and that she'll have a good position in society. She's really not interested. She's very, very flirty. She likes to flirt and date different men. But you don't get the idea that she's promiscuous. It is the 1950s, and, it was a different time then. And she's very frivolous, too. So she gets this letter from, I have to back up a step. She wants to go to college, and she wants to study anthropology. And her father is like, yeah, you're a girl, you don't need a degree, you don't need to go to college, just get married to somebody who's going to take care of you and have, my grandchildren. But she really wants to do this. But she's not really taking any steps on her own to do it. I guess she's not that motivated. So she gets this letter from her cousin who's in the rundown mansion with the husband. And it's like this rambling, crazy letter about they're in the walls and, like she said, what the heck is going on? Is she losing her mind, or is she being held captive in that house? And, like her cousin, she could hear the fear in the letter. And she said, I had somebody mail this letter to you. So she tells the father about it. And the father says, you have to go and find out what's going on.
Don't go to college.
I know.
But go to the crazy
So-
house.
So this is what
where
she
people
does.
are in the walls.
So this is what she does. She says, okay, I'm gonna go do this because I love my cousin and I want to make sure she's okay. And if I need to bring her back home, I'll bring her back home. But if I do this, you have to promise me that you're gonna let me go to college and study anthropology. So he comes to this agreement with her.
Oh.
So anyway, she goes and she meets the very, very odd, spooky, creepy family in this spooky, creepy mansion. Now, it's called Mexican Gothic for a reason. It's kind of inspired by Rebecca, Jane Eyre. I found it more inspired by Dracula than anything, but it isn't about vampires.
Okay.
Good.
You know, it took me a while to figure out what the heck was going on, and that's one of the things I didn't like about the book. So she's in this mansion where it's mostly lit by candlelight. They have a couple of like electric lights, and everybody's really, really weird. And she befriends one of the people who live in the house. Everybody else is really mean to her. And the patriarch of the family is this old man, and he's like a lech. And like, she says, I don't know what's going on in this place, but they never let her go to see her cousin who's in the room. No, sorry, she's resting. And my objection was, like, you came all this way,
Right.
then you insist, or when nobody's looking, you barge into that room
Peggy, that's Peggy.
and find out what the heck is going on.
Absolutely.
But they do always have one of the servants in the room with her cousin, like keeping an eye on
So
it.
she could take him.
So she starts
would.
having these like nightmares, what she thinks are nightmares, every night when she goes to bed. And I can't say too much more,
Right.
but for me, did I leave anything out? I don't think so. Da-da-da-da. It's really about female subjugation, and it's because that's what was happening here in this house. Like, it was the males in the family, and even the woman in the family, I can't say, because I don't want to give away the plot,
Right.
but, you know, the women were exploited.
Okay.
You know, this woman, Naomi, and her cousin were being exploited by these people, including the woman in the house.
Was it a predictable plot?
No, not really, because it got really bizarre. It went a place where I didn't expect it to go.
Good.
At first I thought, oh, they're probably vampires, and
Yeah.
I wish that they were, because I love vampire stories.
Oh, see, I hate vampire stories. Oh, that's.
But it was also, like, it covered white supremacy, too.
Ooh,
Because the family that owned this mansion, they weren't Mexican. They were English. And they came, you know, like a long time ago, and they bought the land where the mines were, and they, you know, used their silver to enrich themselves, and the native people got very little benefit from it. And then they all died mysteriously, and, you know, you find out what happens. And so I guess, you know, I had some questions. My main question was, it didn't sit well with me that she didn't spend the time with her cousin.
Right.
That the whole aim of going there, that was the
yeah.
whole purpose.
I agree.
Yeah.
And she was sneaking into town. She was getting the one person in the house who was somewhat normal, but he was also controlled. And he would bring her into town, and she mailed letters to her father, but in her letters she never told her father what was going on, because she didn't want him to make her leave, but you know, like, he could have come to help her get Catalina
or use
out.
a code or something.
Yeah, and I said that just, I don't know, to me that didn't make sense.
Because you wouldn't have done that.
No, I wouldn't have done that, and that is my
that's
problem when I read a book, and
Yeah,
I
well, let
can't
me
help
ask
it.
you. Yeah.
What made you pick this book? How did you come to
Because
find
this is not a new book, right?
No, this is not a new book, but for a long time I've had a lot of people recommend it to me.
Okay.
So, you know, I shop at Theodore's Books in Oyster Bay,
Right.
and Hannah, who recommends a lot of books to me,
Right.
she had read it, and she said, yeah, it was good, and I actually bought it back in November, and I just got around to reading it.
Okay.
So, I'm not saying I hated it. It was a good story. It's well written. I think the story just got so like crazy. You know, like the
Too
monster.
much.
The monster in the story was completely bizarre. You know, it wasn't the kind of monster I was looking for, to tell you the truth.
So how many stars would you give that book?
So I would give this book probably 3.
I mean, Wildflowers. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Wildflowers.
Yeah.
We don't usually rate our books.
I always do.
Do we?
Yeah, I do. I rate my books.
She tends to.
Yeah, I do.
Is that bad?
No,
I'm rating
you don't
it.
want to do it.
I would say-
like it.
I would say 3.5.
3.5.
I would give it 3.5. I'm not saying do not read this book. It's interesting. She's an interesting
She wanted
character.
a vampire.
And yeah, and well, see, you know,
Has she
to
written
me-
other books?
yes, she has written other books,
Okay.
but I've never read any of them. I mean, I might give her another chance because I think that she's a good writer. And I mean, look at this awesome, like cover, and the cover art is great. That was probably from the hardcover,
Oh wow.
and
But I like the other cover better.
yeah,
I do
it's
like
cool. Well, this is more
That
like.
looks very like.
It's more like 1950s
Yeah.
Gothic
Yes,
novel
yeah,
cover, you know. But yeah, I mean, I like. There's a lot of reviews for it. She wrote other books: The Beautiful Ones, Certain Dark Things, Signal to Noise, Gods of Jade and Shadow, Untamed Shore, and then Mexican Gothic.
Wow.
So like 6
Okay.
books.
Yeah.
Good for her.
So anyway, yeah. So that's my story.
Awesome. Thank you,
Okay.
Peggy.
Okay, you're welcome.
Well,
Should we take a little break?
Yeah, we're gonna
take a
little break.
and then the next subject is going to be my topic, and it's going to be
Which
about
is?
bookstores, but it's more than that.
Okay, we're off.
Hello, Judy. Say your stage
Oh.
and your line.
We're back.
There you
Here we
go.
are. Welcome back. We gotta flip the screen around, Peg.
Well, she didn't last time. I didn't say
Oh,
anything.
oh, you see?
I didn't say
I was
anything.
thinking of you when I told her.
I didn't say it. So hopefully she's in this
She is.
shot.
So we have a topic to talk about, which is
Bookstores.
yay.
Yeah, and that's mine. And I want to preface this with, this is a topic I'm very comfortable with, and we all are involved, have been involved with bookstores. But some of our previous topics, I felt out of the loop, and I'll be very honest about that.
You did.
Yeah, I did. The medicine bag one, I wasn't prepared. I really had a whole different idea of what the medicine bag was. And then the compost.
She thought it was carrying ibuprofen around with her.
I'm like, okay, we're talking about pharmaceutical items. But I don't know. And then, the composting and gardening. You guys are very well versed in that. And I felt like I was like this and like this.
Well, that's because it was my subject and I researched it. It wasn't like I knew everything about
But
it,
you
a
were
little bit.
But you were interested in it. And I gotta admit, I'm not terribly interested in it.
Carol doesn't care about the
She
environment.
doesn't compost.
No, I do. And I really want to be that person.
But she struggles with
I
it.
do.
But she did give a bag of her vegetables to Judy to compost.
compost. I
And
did.
2 bags of corks.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did the corks, but I knew I wanted to find a home for my corks. But anyway, so I was like, okay, this is a topic that we can all converse about, but I wanted to enter into the conversation about where I grew up, which was in upstate New York, near the Canadian border, very rural area, and I have no recollection of going to a bookstore when I was a kid. There was just no bookstores. So I asked my brother, I said, do you remember, I don't know why I asked him because he doesn't really read, I said, where there were bookstores or whatever, and he goes, I don't know, he couldn't think of any. But there was a 5 and 10 store called Alex's 5 and 10 in town, and not in town, but in Chateauguay, which was 7 miles from where I grew up. And I remembered, it had a small paperback section, book section, in the store. And I remember being allowed to buy a book. And the book that I bought was Dr. Kildare.
Oh my God.
The Magic Key. I had such a crush on Richard Chamberlain.
So did I.
Even though
I had
was
his poster in my bedroom.
Now this is quite the studly looking guy.
that doesn't really justify identify what he
But
looked like.
still.
But I was allowed to buy this
So
paperback.
you must have been a teenager by then.
No, I was probably
This doesn't look
10 or 11 years
sterile.
old.
He's got no gloves. He's got no mask.
But
No
it's
wonder
not-
that woman's dead.
No, it was a child named Penny.
Oh, okay.
And she hurt her arm, and he had to teach her how to move her up.
Oh.
But it was Dr. Kilder, so I was Penny. Anyway,
Yes.
so yeah, that was the memory of that, but going and buying that book. And then the first time I remembered seeing cases filled with books was when I was in school, and I don't know if I was in kindergarten or if they did the class trip or first grade, but when we went down the hallway to the other wing of the high school, we were brought to the library. And I walked in and and I know it had to do with the teachers too, like you had to be quiet.
Yeah.
So that sense of wonder and seeing shelves upon shelves of books. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is like crazy. It was crazy and it was intense. And as I got older, then you were taught how to use the library card file, the Dewey Decimal System, and all that. And we actually have a member in our audience who is in the library system now. So this is probably very interesting to you, or not. Okay. So then, let's see, where is this? So then, as I got older, I was a receptionist for attorneys in the town of Chateauguay, in their town hall, and it was a satellite office. So I just worked there Monday through Friday, and they would come in maybe once or twice a week for a couple of hours. And I was just there in case any possible clients came in. But across the hallway was the library. So I was like in heaven. I would go across and get out books and that kind of thing. So it
Was
wasn't.
the library was in the lawyer's office?
No, across the hall in the town hall building.
Oh.
Because the satellite office was in the town hall building. They had another office in Malone, but the satellite office was in Chateauguay. So it wasn't until I moved to Long Island that I went to libraries too, but I went to bookstores, and I cannot for the life of me remember the very first bookstore that I went to. I'm guessing it was a Barnes & Noble. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Maybe a Walden Books, because they were in the malls.
They were in the malls, possibly. Yeah, because I do remember going in there, but I don't know if it was the first one.
Dalton.
True, very true. So, what I want to ask the two of you is, do you recall the first bookstore that you patronized?
I recall the library.
The library, but not the bookstore.
I don't recall the first bookstore that I've been in, but I definitely recall the first library and how important that was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My dad used to take me.
Oh, okay. And was it in Amityville?
It was in Copeg,
Okay.
which is which is now a firehouse, but it was there, and I used to take out Dr. Seuss's one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish every time. And then they would give you stickers for like the Readers Club, and then my dad would say, "Why don't we take out a new book?" And I'd be like, "Okay."
Why?
And then, I would still take out my one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. I just thought that book was the best thing ever written. I really did. I loved it.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Brooklyn, in Bushwick, and believe it or not, we did not have a bookstore
Really?
in our neighborhood. And I was always all over that neighborhood. But we did have 2, 5, and 10s who always sold paperback books.
Right.
But they were really not geared to kids. They were like the Avon romance novels that cost like 15 or 25 cents. My sister Mary Ellen had a closet full of them. And but we went to the library all the time. We went to the Irving Avenue branch of the New York Public Library, and we were always at the library. And the first bookstore that I actually remember being in, and I could be way off base, maybe when I was in high school, I went to school in downtown Brooklyn. I might have gone to bookstores there, or like college age. My friends were in college in downtown Brooklyn. Maybe I did. I really don't remember. The first one I remember going to was the Walden Books
Oh, okay.
on Hempstead Turnpike, which is now an Old Navy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a
okay.
freestanding bookstore
Yeah,
when I lived
they
in
used to be
Levittown.
everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
I think if I would have to put money on it, I would say the same thing. I said
Maybe
it
it
was
was
probably
Walden Books that I
a Walden Books or B. Dalton for me
Yeah.
in the Sunrise Mall, because they had in the Sunrise Mall, which is now a shell now. They don't
Yeah,
exist,
yeah.
But they had a Walden Books on the upstairs and they had a B. Dalton on the bottom.
Right, yeah.
My sister walked in the Walden Books upstairs, but I started working at that mall when I was 15.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I think it was probably
Yeah.
All
one
right.
of those bookstores that was,
Yeah.
I would say, was one of my first.
Okay.
But even back then, like when my kids were little, I didn't buy books. We went to the
The
library
Right.
all the time.
Absolutely.
You know, the
Yeah.
Island Trees Library when my kids were little was in the basement of Nassau Mall. You know,
Oh, okay.
and then they moved it to an abandoned school
We had
building.
very good
so.
libraries where
Yeah.
we
Yeah,
were.
that's
You know,
awesome.
that's,
Yeah,
think
I was
so.
Yeah.
as a kid. You know, I was like, if school wasn't in session, I didn't get
You
access.
didn't get access to.
to
You didn't
books.
have a
Yeah.
library like the Cherubusco didn't have a library of its
No,
own.
no, no.
Malone didn't have a library.
Yeah,
of
but
its
we did not go very. We
You
did
didn't
not
go.
actually travel. And that would be called traveling.
own. Oh, okay, yeah.
We got groceries there, but that was about it.
Oh wow.
But you know, so what's connects the three of us and also our audience members is that we all worked at Borders Books. And well, I wanted to back up a little bit too and say that, you know, when I first started going to bookstores as opposed to libraries, I did love that I could buy books and put them on my bookcase,
Yes.
and it kept growing and growing. I wasn't big on jewelry.
Yes.
I was like, if for holidays and whatever, I tell people, don't get me jewelry. I like books. Give me books. Anyway, so in 1991, although Borders only had 13 stores at the time, it had sales of $82 million, making it the fourth largest chain in terms of revenue, as it pioneered the superstore concept. Its operating income of $6 million also made it among the most profitable bookstore chains at the time, and it acquired Walden Books, itself owned by Kmart, and in 1992 to jumpstart Walden's superstore expansion. Then after Kmart merged with Walden and Borders, the bookstore chain was spun off its own company. And Borders was basically the bad guy compared with independent bookstores. Like we were considered the bad guy because we were putting independent bookstores out of business. And who would have ever seen what unfolded, how it all transpired?
I did.
But well, independent bookstores are still thriving. Not every of them, but they are. So what I want to ask the two of you is, did you specifically look for a bookstore to hire you when you were seeking a job? Or was it just happened that, the bookstore was hiring and you took the job?
Well, for me, at the time, I was a daycare provider.
Yes.
I had been a daycare provider for like 6.5, 7 years. And all the kids I had, like the little ones who weren't in school in my school district where I lived, they got to be school age, and they lived in Farmingdale and all these other towns. And I said, I can't be, transporting kids to school.
Oh, no.
I have my own kids. So I said, I have to get out of this racket because everybody, all my new people that wanted to hire me, they all had infants. Now at the time I was like 40 years old, and I said, I'm kind of done with the whole infant thing now. My kids, were getting to be independent, and my life was a lot easier. And I was reading the paper when everybody used to get the newspaper,
Yes.
and I saw that I started looking for a job, and I saw this big ad, and it said Borders Bookstore,
What year?
opening in Levittown,
What year?
1992.
Oh, wow.
Now wait, did it say Borders or B. Dalton? Because initially it was going to be.
No, it was Bassett
it was
Books. Bassett Books.
Right.
And actually it did Bassett. I still have the tote bag that says Bassett Books.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So does Aunt Lynn.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's so funny.
And it said Bassett Books, and they were looking for help. And now I was out of the job market for a long time now, since like 1980, and this was 1992. And I remember my phone, it was a wall dial phone on my kitchen wall. And I said, just call It's a call for an interview. And I go over to the phone. Oh God, I can't. This went on for hours.
Oh my
And I
God.
finally said, just dial the phone, it's fine.
Oh my gosh.
And I think it was Mike G.
Oh my God! Hi,
Who
Mike.
answered the phone, and I made the appointment for the interview, and I had told them, they asked my availability. I said, I have school-age kids, I can't work weekends, I can't work nights, and I thought, they're never going to hire me. And they gave me an interview, and then they did hire me, and I was shocked. And
what was your
Part-time
position?
or full-time?
children's clerk.
Part-time or full-time?
It was part-time. I had to leave for the school bus, and I told them I have to be home at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
And I was. And actually, Kathleen and I started on November 4th, 1992.
The same day?
The same day.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that and Jane Fabianski. Remember Jane?
Oh yeah.
And we were like the three older people, and we were all like, she's a lot, she was like 30, I was like 40. And Jane was my age too. And I remember, we were carrying all these big boxes and staging them. And I remember seeing all these young people, because the last time I had a job outside of home, it was like I was one of the younger people.
Yeah.
And I remember you and I saying, oh my God, everybody's so young around here.
Yeah.
Like we were the older people.
Wow.
So, yeah.
What about you, Judy?
Well, I started working from Borders in 1996. And it was Levittown as well. That's where we all met. And I had also graduated in May of that year from Binghamton University. And, I was at that stage, what do I do? Now, I had also applied for and been accepted to graduate school for English. I got accepted to Hofstra, I got accepted to Binghamton, I got accepted to a couple of other schools. And I was at this point in my life, do I want to go for my graduate, my major was English literature. That's what I graduated with. What do you do with that? And
Work
so,
at a bookstore.
Work at a bookstore.
For peanuts.
Teaching. And so I was kind of like, do I want to teach? Which I wasn't that passionate about, or do I want to take a little time off? And my mom, thank you very much, Mom. She said, why don't you see if there's any bookstores hiring you could see in the meantime? Because I needed a job in the meantime because I needed to pay my bills. Student loans were coming due, all of this, credit cards. And just like you, open up the newspaper, and there, the only bookstore I saw was a big ad for Borders Bookshop in Levittown. I go, that's not too far. I lived in Amity Harbor at the time, and there was Levittown, not too far. And I sent my resume. I think that's how he had to do it then. I'm pretty sure that's what I did. I sent my resume.
You didn't have to take a test?
I didn't have to take this, and I've heard about the test.
I didn't have to take
but
the
I
test.
didn't have to take the test, but I got an interview, and I remember sitting for the interview with Bill. Bill interviewed me, and Bill Sheehan, rest in peace. And so I sat at the interview in the cafe, and we had an interview. And I think he did ask me things like what I was reading or what I had read and stuff like that. And I was a 19th century British literature fanatic, so I was like Jane Austen, Elizabeth Gaskell, anything like, I just loved it. And then I got the job, and I was interviewing for assistant manager, so I got the assistant manager job. And then you were cafe manager at the time, and you were CRC.
Right.
And Kathleen was still here. Sorry, yes, community. And Kathleen was there, and she was in the children's room at Bookseller. And I have to say, reflecting back, working at the bookstore was probably one of my best jobs.
Yeah.
It was really definitely one of the best jobs I ever had.
And
I enjoyed working for Borders until it got all clunky at the end. It got very
sad.
corporate. Yeah.
But still, working there, it's a shame it didn't. It had a good model.
Yeah.
It's a shame we couldn't carry it.
Yeah, because the leadership was bad. But I wanted to ask Kathleen a question because I couldn't remember. You didn't stay till the very end of Borders, right? Didn't you leave before?
No, I left a year before they officially closed all their doors.
Yeah.
Which was when, Kathleen?
2011 is when they closed
Yeah,
their doors.
2010 I started working at the library.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember I was really mad when they went out of business because when I left, I had worked there for 15 years and I was 55 years old. And part of one of their benefits was you have a lifetime discount
Yeah.
if you worked at least 15 years and you were 55 or older. So I had a discount card. So I, even when I wasn't working there, I used to work right down the block. I took the job in the bowling alley down the block, and I was always in there. And they said, "Oh, I don't get my discount anymore."
Well, I patronized your Borders. That's how I didn't know you. I saw
Yeah.
you working
In
the store-
Levittown.
In Levittown, and they would have writers programs, and you'd share your writing and that kind of thing. And Peter Garinati led that group, whatever.
Remember him.
And then I found out that they were going to be opening up a Borders Books and Music in Westbury, and I had a friend who said, "Why don't you apply?" And I wasn't even really thinking about that, but I really wanted to be in that industry, see what was being published, that kind of thing, because I was just getting my feet wet as being a writer. And so I went in and I had to apply, and they had a quiz where you had to write
I've
answers.
heard about this.
And the only thing I didn't do well on was country music. That was the only thing, but otherwise I did. And I only could do part-time at the time because I had young children as well. And Westbury Borders hired over 100 employees initially to get the bookstore
Westbury
open.
was a big start. Number
Yeah.
51.
Yeah.
But to get to
We
get
were
it open.
44 in Levittown,
44,
yeah.
yeah.
So
What year was that, Carol?
I don't remember either.
51 or 52.
Say it again.
They were
sorry.
52.
They were 52.
52.
Yeah.
1994 maybe?
Yeah.
Something like that. But it was exciting to help open a new store, even with
Yeah.
that many people, and get to know the different energies. And then once the store opened, you saw they were starting to eliminate positions. And I really loved the job, but I was part-time. I was a mom with kids at home, and like you, I was worried that I was like, oh, they're gonna eliminate me. And I went to the manager at the time, Joe, and I was like, I really like this job. I hope I keep it. And he goes, don't worry about it. It's yours. And then, and then I got to, get promotions and and I became the events coordinator. They kept changing the name. Events coordinator, community relations
CRC,
coordinator, all this thing. But, and then I ended up helping opening up the bookstore in Manhattan. And I started working out of the Park Avenue location and doing a lot of events, and then I booked national events for Borders across the country. And it was heartbreaking to see the changes in the store and how it became. Every store had its own energy, but then they wanted it to make it also unified.
Corporate.
Yeah.
And
That all the stores
We
looked
went
the
from a
same,
time
the
where we
same
could
design.
have more control over what events we planned.
Yeah.
Even the signage, like we could pay, we
Yes.
could make our own signs, and then it became, you have to
And
use
the
these
end
certain
caps, you could
signs.
do your own end caps, and
Staff
then they came out.
recommends.
you knew what your audience was.
Yes.
You knew your
Yeah.
and
An event that worked in Park Avenue was not going to work in Levittown.
And they did not get it.
They
The
didn't
corporate office
understand that.
did not get
Yeah.
it. I did an event with John Tesh. I don't know if you remember
I know
him.
John Tesh, yeah.
And we had 2 people.
Yeah.
And corporate said, "What did you do for the promotion?"
But it's interesting.
I was like,
It's Manhattan,
It's
first
Manhattan.
of all. Yeah.
people won't cross the street. I had a woman come into the store one time, and we were hosting Charlton Heston, and he was
I
downstairs.
was with you for that event.
Were you with me?
You
Okay.
wore, remember? Yeah, I remember.
Okay, so she came into the store and she goes, "Is Chuck here?" and our manager was standing there. He goes, "Oh, he's doing the event downstairs." She goes, "Oh, I'm not going downstairs." And that was the mindset. People didn't want to cross the street in Manhattan for certain events. It wasn't a big deal to them to meet these people.
To meet a celebrity.
Yeah.
Whereas in Levittown, we would have certain events and they would wrap around like the block.
Yeah.
They'd wrap around they'd come hours and hours ahead of time. If we had Charlton Heston in Levittown, we would have had to
Yeah,
like
I mean, it
close down
was
the parking lot.
successful, but it
Yeah.
wasn't like
Yeah.
like you said, it was whatever. There were protesters though, because he was a very big NRA
Yes.
advocate.
Yes.
There was a New York Times article, and it noted, and this is like 1969. It said dozens of bookstores once lined 4th Avenue, and this was from the article. What Lincoln Center is to music is what Broadway is to theater. 4th Avenue is to the rare, used, and antiquarian books. And they used to have tons of bookstores in Manhattan. Now, do you remember New York is book country?
Yes.
Do you remember New York is book
I
country?
do. I actually have the poster hanging up in my apartment
Oh, you
with
do?
the
Yes.
lion. I finally hung it up.
We used to go.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
and I actually used to go before we even went to there wasn't even before there was a Borders on Long Island. My then husband and I, we would go, and we would always go to a literary luncheon at the Waldorf and get our book signed and then walk up and down. It was just such an energy. And it's just
There's a magic with books,
Yeah.
and it's being lost with. I mean, I say most of my life I still describe myself as a poor student, even though I have a good salary and I'm an attorney, whatever. But my mindset is still looking for that solace, and what the magic that happens when you discover a library selling their used books or a used bookstore selling used books, it would. As a poor student who would have to choose between, can I buy groceries today, or do I have? If I had $5 in my pocket, I still could not pass up a used bookstore because you never know what you'd find, and you'd get lost in there. And there were certain books. I lived in Boston for many, many years, a decade at least, and there were bookstores along my path. That's the only thing that could distract me. And I'd go in there and I'd find books.
Yeah.
And I took my girls back to Boston not too long ago, and those bookstores are gone. These
so
used bookstores are gone.
Yeah.
And it's very sad. And I just spent this weekend, I dropped my girls up at the library, and I was telling Kathleen, I dropped them off, but they have used books on the stand, and I just spent so I come back and I feel like I got treasures, and one of them had a dedication in it, and I'm a sucker for books with a dedication or a note stuck in it or something, and I'm like, oh, mine, and I grab it, and it's like a treasure, and I'm like, I'll give you, it's like $1, and it is just something that I'll find, and whether I read it this year or 2 years from now or wherever, it's a great. I'd rather have that than jewelry.
Yeah, when we were in for Thanksgiving, we went to Virginia by Shenandoah. We rented a house and spent it there, and we went into Luray, I think is the name of the town, and they had a used bookstore, and it had an upstairs.
Oh, I
and the proprietor, the man who owned it, he said it's really my wife's, but I work here too, and I ended up, I bought 3 books there, because I said, you're going in, you have to buy something, So, and it was just, it had the creaky staircase when you walk up.
I love that. And the smell. Well, that's how Peggy loves the smell of books.
I do too. Well, I went to Dublin, and I picked up 4 of Tom Phelan's used books at the Dublin bookstore. And I shoved them into my suitcase coming back, and I'm like, I'm like, I got books.
That's all you need.
Love them.
Well, when my Borders closed, and it was so sad, and I don't know, how many years was it before you and I started talking about, let's have a bookstore, let's do a bookstore. I know. It was
so proud of the both of you for doing that. I was so proud of you.
Thank you.
If I had lived here, I would have been like, count me in, but I was in Boston.
Yeah,
I was so proud of the both of you.
Well, you're lucky because you would have lost your shirt too.
Yeah.
No, but you guys did it.
Let me ask.
Yeah, we did it.
Do you regret it?
No, I regret losing the money. Every time, I think, oh my God, we had to pay off that friggin' business loan, and we didn't make any money for the 4.
And we
never took a salary, not a penny.
No, actually we took a lot of our own money to try to keep ourselves afloat. But the thing is,
the kids. Remember that little girl who used to come in for the
Ashley.
event? Ashley.
Yeah.
The kids you inspired.
Yeah.
That we were there for a purpose. I don't know if I believe in the whole, but we were there for a purpose.
You did good work.
Yeah, and you know what? I regret it.
You knew who I was talking about.
Yeah.
The second both of you.
I remember all of our customers.
You knew exactly who I was talking about.
Yep.
There's a reason for what you did.
It was a good community place, and that people. Our downfall was probably why all those used bookstores on 4th Avenue are gone, because of the rent.
Yeah.
You
The
can't,
rents.
because you can't make enough money to
Right.
pay a lot of rent.
But maybe what's going on now is going to be a reckoning, because I said they're going to find themselves with all this real estate that's vacant.
The people that
Yeah.
own those buildings are gonna get as much money as
Well,
they
whatever,
can.
but you know,
Yeah, that's
I
true.
think we're going to come down, because used bookstores and bookstores in general are making a comeback.
They
That's
are.
what they said when we opened up
Yeah.
ours.
It just didn't work out. We're almost out of time.
Oh,
but,
no.
I know, but you know, thank you so much for sharing this conversation with me. There's so many quotes about bookstores that I looked up. But
Read
okay, all right, I'll read. Bookstores are lonely forts, spilling light onto the sidewalk. They civilize their neighborhoods. Amen. And that's John Updike quote. And this one I love. Bookstores are dreams built of wood and paper. They are time travel and escape and knowledge and power. They are, simply put, the best of places. And that's by Jen Campbell. I'm not sure who she is. But, yeah, anytime there's a bookstore, they are just value to the community. And like, you remembered Ashley and then the children that came, and I remember some of the faces of people that came in, and they're like, but here's what I remember.
Go ahead.
Them saying, don't go anywhere, and I can get my books cheaper at Amazon.
What I remember is the collection of souls that are attracted to a bookstore. Not just us, all of us,
Right.
but I mean the young, the old. I mean, even get Elsa. Think
Oh
of
my gosh, yes.
the youngest of us as well, working
Yeah.
in the cafe. Even Michelle, or you know, the one the one with the butterflies, or you know, she. All of us were attracted there because of a reason. It brings out the best of us. Bookstores do, and the events and those parents who brought their kids there week after week for events. It's a belief in humanity. I think more bookstores, libraries. That's where I'll go.
I
That's what I
remember
believe in.
my son actually started working in
Jason believes it too.
he started working in the bookstore, and I was like, I'm going to keep my distance. I don't want to embarrass him. I don't want to do that. And when we closed, and it was time, the store was closed, but we were putting shelving and everything. He comes on the intercom and he goes, "Hi, Mommy." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that works out
I
fine."
still have a lot of Borders furniture too.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost
Yes,
done.
I know.
So anyway, so thank you so much. Don't leave yet, Peggy.
Oh,
Say thank you. Thank you, everybody.
I look like a giant on this. She looks like Hagrid all the time.
I was telling Carol we have to get adjustable stools
Yeah,
and lock
I gotta
doors.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm so big on this.
Goodbye,
You guys are
everybody.
just short.